Hello, Sarah Girard here, and this is your weekly Hatha Yoga class. Thank you so much for being here. We are, oh my gosh, we're in the final week of July. Wow. And so it's going to be the last week that we focus on our niyama santosha. Santosha means contentment or satisfaction. And in the last few weeks, I've been focusing a lot on feet and lower body, hips last week. And today we'll start to get into the upper body, the respiratory apparatus, and our shoulders. I'm reminded of a quote by Sri Nisargadatta, and it is, "The mind creates the abyss, the heart crosses it." The mind creates the abyss, the heart crosses it. Now, when we get caught in our subconscious patterns, in our deep impressions or samskaras, right, we create separation. There is that chasm of scarcity, of lack, of non-connection. And it is when we start to drop into and connect to our heart mind, our God consciousness, that we have a choice to observe, to recognize the abundance, the great connection which occurs in this moment. And that, my friends, in that connection, in that abundance, is santosha, is that state of satisfaction. Now, it's not always easy to observe and to choose, right, that state of abundance, which is why we have practices, which is why we have technique, and which is why I'm so happy that you're here with me today. So we've got 2 blocks and a blanket, are typical items that I like to have near me as I'm practicing. You're welcome to assemble those items or similar items near you at your space. I'm also going to be working with one of these little squishy balls, the squishy therapy balls today. And this is a gorgeous ball created by Jill Miller. However, you can also use other abdominal or round Pilates balls like this, but I just like to deflate it slightly to make it really soft. Now, if you don't have one of these therapy balls, totally fine. You can always use one of your couch cushions, just something kind of squishy and comfy. Once you get those items, join me on your mat. I'm going to place that squishy therapy ball right behind my rib cage. We're going to do some just breath awareness at the beginning here. Bend your elbows, bring your hands behind your head, and my knees are bent. My feet are on the floor. And I'm also starting to drag my hips towards my heels, creating a sense of length or traction through my low back. Now, with my hands behind my head, I'm going to gently nudge my chin towards my throat so that the back of my neck is also getting some traction. Now I'm going to keep my chin towards my throat, and I'm going to start to press my head back into my palms slightly. Now, as I press my head back and slightly down into my palms, my chest is going to be elevated, and I'm not like intentionally doing a little sit-up, but there is this connection. You might even rock a couple times with me up and back so that you can feel that the distance between my chin and my chest is staying somewhat equidistant. We'll get into this a little bit more when we're sitting up in a second. It might be easier to see. Because as I'm lifting my chest, my head can start to actually shift back and maybe even come down onto the ground. But all the while, I'm going to reinforce, the chin stays towards the throat. And your throat can even soften. And take a couple breaths. Notice as you're breathing, if there is already a sense of work, strenuousness. For so many years I thought that in order to be a good yogi, I had to have really loud ujjayi pranayam, or I had to breathe really loudly so everyone could hear how good I was. Your breath can actually be softer, quieter, and more efficient. Take 2 more breaths here. I'm going to slowly roll on over to my left side and remove the therapy ball out from underneath my back. And I'm going to place it underneath my left rib cage. Now, again, if you don't have one of these little squishy therapy balls, you're welcome to use 2 couch cushions. You'd put one underneath your rib cage and one here underneath your top armpit. I'm going to bend my top arm and bring my hand to the top of my rib cage. So all that I've done here, right, but also bending my knees, kind of laying down onto my side, is that I've created 2 connective or tangible kind of closed feedback loops for my rib cage so that I can start to breathe laterally or into the sides of my ribs. You're going to exhale fully, and I'm going to let the weight of this top hand descend down. And then I'm going to inhale and try to press my rib cage wide into the 2 kind of tangible feedback places. Exhale. Do this a couple more times. So I'll inhale and try to press into the therapy ball and my hand, or if you're using 2 couch cushions, press into those 2 places. And then exhale completely. Twice more. Wonderful. You're going to lay onto your back, take the props out from underneath you, and we're going to go directly on over to the second side. So I'm going to place that therapy ball underneath my rib cage. So it's not underneath, I just want to reaffirm that there's nothing underneath the soft waist. We want to be working with the therapy ball or even the pillow underneath your rib cage. So it's on bony structure or hard structure. Bring your left hand or top arm to your top rib. Exhale completely. And then inhale and get wide. Do this a couple more times so you can start to feel maybe even the intercostals, the little woven muscles in between your ribs, starting to stretch from within. And you might even notice actually that by breathing into the sides of your rib cage, your breath does get quieter. And then you'll slowly release. All right, before we come on up, place a pillow or your therapy ball between your knees. Bend your elbows, bring your hands down next to you. So we just had a chance to map the back and the sides of your ribs. Press your upper shoulders and arms down into the ground and lift your hips up. Pause here. Lift your toes up off of the floor and lower your hips. Keep your toes lifted so that you can strike your heels down into the mat. Lift your hips up and lower down. So you're trying to target the backs of your legs, hips lift, toes lift, lower down. So we're bringing much more weight into the backs of our feet. Obviously, our heels are on the ground, but by doing that, we can target the whole back side of our legs. With the therapy ball between our knees, we're just training our knees to stay at a consistent distance. Notice if you are one to kind of list around with your hips, can you just lower up and down really specifically. So that both legs, your bilateral limbs of your legs, are working efficiently and equally. 3 more. Just these hip bridges. One more time. And then lower down. Take the therapy ball or pillow out from in between your knees. And again, bring your feet down to the ground, knees bent. Bend your elbows like 2 little robot arms. And press your upper arms down into the mat. Lift your hips up and pause. You're going to step your right foot forward just a couple inches. There you go. And then you'll step your left foot forward a couple inches. And then step your right foot a couple more inches. So you're just walking your feet forward. And step your left foot a couple inches forward. Do this one more time. Step your right foot forward. Try to keep your toes on the floor. Try to keep your hips lifted. Left foot. Pause here. With your legs somewhat straight, press your heels down. Lift your hips. Slowly step your left leg back. Keep breathing. Right leg back. Left leg back. Right leg back. Left leg back. Keep your hips lifted. Let's go for that stroll one more time. Walking your feet forward. Now what we're attempting to do is put the hamstring and put the back of the leg under a sense of load or carrying weight as we're changing the shape of that muscle. You notice that as you lengthen the leg, it gets a little harder. Wonderful. Bring your feet back so that you can feel the whole base of your foot pressing down. Lift your hips up a little bit more. Soften your jaw. Press the back of your head into the ground. And then lower all the way down. Hug your knees into your chest, but keep the back of your pelvis grounded on the floor. All right? And that you can do that and still keep your low back on the floor, but also try to get your sacrum and your sits bones to the ground. That will help the backs of your legs start to yawn a bit more. Okay. Rock forward and back, building your momentum. If, of course, your low back is tender, you can always roll to your side, use your arms, and come up. We're going to do one more thing because we mapped the back and the sides of the rib cage. We'll also start to map the front of the rib cage. Now, again, as I mentioned, you don't have to be doing this with this specific prop. You can be using a pillow off of your couch, but it's important to get this sense of tangible feedback, right? This is where our body is, right? Because this is something that we'll be focusing on today, and I always want us to have this frame of reference. You're going to place your sternum onto this therapy ball, somewhat in between the nipple line, if you will. Bend your elbows, stack your hands one on top of the other, and bring your forehead down onto your hands. Breathe. Breathe into where the therapy ball or the pillow is. And let your breath fill the whole upper body, the whole circumference of your rib cage. Getting wide through your back, your shoulder blades. 2 more breaths. And noticing how on the inhalation, the shoulders, the jaw, the traps want to get involved. Keep them on the sidelines for the time being. There will be moments when we need them. But right now we're just breathing. And maybe even breathing into a different place. Cool. Take the therapy ball out from underneath you. Still stack your hands and place your forehead onto your hands. Notice that little shadowy spot where the therapy ball just was. And notice how your breath can widen and fill your upper body. Bring your ankles together to touch. Squeeze your thighs together. Keep your pubic bone pressing down into the mat as you bend your knees, sliding your heels towards your hips. And then straighten your legs. Exhale, bend your knees. It's like you have a little tail back there that you're flapping. Inhale, straighten. And yes, do this a few more times. You're pressing your pubic bone forward into the ground, so much so that the navel starts to lift up off of the mat. As you bend your knees, moving your heels towards your hips, notice how the backs of your legs contract. Pause here, bending your knees. Flex your feet, so pull your toes down towards your shin and continue to press your pubic bone down into the mat. Notice how your knees want to widen. Can you keep squeezing your knees together? And don't forget about that breath. All the ways in which we create that clamping, that restriction. Allow the breath to move. One more breath, that is. And then slowly release, pointing your toes. Lift your head up and bring your hands down next to your ribs. Push the floor away, lift your chest up off of your legs, and come to child's pose. Gliding your sits bones back towards your heels. All right, walk your hands back and come on up to sit. I'm going to stack my two blocks, one on top of the other. And I'm going to face this way so that I have my seeing eye towards you. So I'm not turning a blind eye to you. You'll sit on something comfortable, and I recommend having your knees hips distance apart or even slightly narrower than hips distance, okay? You'll place your hands onto your breastbone. And you might even do a little tapping here. In fact, let's do that. You can feel how that tapping will make some resonance through your vocal cords. It's kind of fun, breaking up that stagnation. Whew. Let's start to connect, right? We're opening up this heart today. Oh, each and every day we open our hearts. Whew, it's a work, it's practice. Place your hand, one other hand, on your third eye and give it a very minor light tap to your ajna, third eye point, that sense of perception. Lightly tap sternum, third eye. Just starting to integrate their connection. Beginning already to cross that abyss between mind and heart. Okay? Now, release your hands, let your arms just settle down next to you. Notice that little tingle, the space where your tapping just was. Stay as you are, but blink your eyes open. Now, this is a position I find myself in very consistently when I am on my devices, right, computer, is there is this sinking of my chest downward. Why? Because gravity, because it's just how I sink, right? Now, if I'm going to be looking forward, you can see that there is a long distance between my chin and my chest. Now, if I start to lift my chest upwards, right, and I don't change any of the distance or this relationship between my chin and my chest, if I'm lifting my chest, right, it's going to affect my neck and it's going to affect my head. Now, right, how am I going to then look forward, right? I want to, instead, as we start to build ourselves towards a neutral standing shape, right? And we can even do this with the feedback of our pillow or our little Coregeous ball to ensure that we have the same distance between our chest and our chin. I'm going to pin the ball right here. Okay? And I want to make sure I've got a good amount of air in the ball that I'm pinning right here. Okay? This is ensuring that I have the same distance between my chin and my chest. Now, I'm going to start to inflate and lift my chest. And allow my head and my ear line to tip backwards. If I maintain the space and the lift of my chest and start to exhale, the exhalation actually originates from a lower place, a place of pelvic floor resonance, place in the abdomen. You can remove any prop and see if there can be a consistent distance between chin and chest. So as my chest rises, my chin also must descend. For those of you who practice bandhas, this is the Jalandhara bandha, the mouth-throat lock. And again, the breath helps us to realign from this schlumping state, where we might compress the back of our neck here. Right? We can't just lift our chest and thrust our head back, right? Because then that means the neck is still compressed. So we have to find a sense of lift through our chest and soften and quiet our brain, quiet our mind down. You still with me? I know, it's so wild. Place your hands behind your head. Maintain the sense of length between right at the back of your neck by drawing your chin towards your throat. Inflate your rib cage. Move your heart forward and lean your head back into your palms. It's like you're giving yourself a double chin. Move your chin towards your throat. Lean your head back. And then exhale round. Navel to spine. So it's a little seated cat-cow here. But we're keeping, or trying to at least, keep the same distance between your chin and your chest the whole time. If you want to kick this up a notch, place that prop there between your chin and your chest a few more times and try to keep it there so that you're maintaining the distance between chin and chest. Three more. Okay. Coming forward with your gaze, release your arms. Lift your hips up off of your blocks. Come forward to hands and knees. Start to roll your rib cage around in a circle. And just exploring the whole circumference of your rib cage. Oh. Unhinge your jaw. When in doubt, exhale. Let the breath move through the body. Go in the opposite direction, mobilizing your lumbar, your low back. Child's pose. Find some stillness after that movement. Notice what's still moving. Downward facing dog. Keep your heels lifted this first time around and find a height with your butt bones. You can keep your knees bent if you'd like. Keep moving the tops of your thighs back. Chin to throat. Let your neck hang. Last breath here. Look forward, bend your knees, and walk your feet forward towards your hands. Separate your feet as wide as your mat, bend your knees. Bring your left hand to your sacrum, your right hand to the back of your head. We did this last week. You're going to bend your knees, move your hips back so your weight is into your heels. Remember, weight is in your heels, helps to access the backs of your legs. Push the floor away, stand up. Hand behind your head allows you or just reminds you to keep your chin towards your chest. Bend your knees. Stand up. Squeeze your buns. Inhale, bend. Stand up. It's kind of like you're screwing your feet down into the floor. Inhale, bend. Exhale, stand. Press the back of your head into your palm. You're trying to get your head back onto your spine. After all of that forward thrusting that we do, it's really trying to reestablish and bring the body back into alignment with itself for efficiency, for grace, for ease. 3 more. Release your arms down next to you. Bring your hands to your hips, in fact. And then you're going to step your left leg back, coming into a bent knee lunge. So you're going to bend both of your knees, and you're going to keep your right knee facing the same direction as your right toes. I will face you so that you can have an idea and a frame of reference. You're going to keep your front knee bent, facing the same front of your toes, and then you're going to keep your hip locked into this position as well. Your outer hip is going to start, your left leg's hip is going to start to shift forward and somewhat tilt. So you're really closing the front of that inner right groin. All right, and then come back. Keep that outer right hip squeezing and firming. Do that again. Squeeze and twist, turning in. Let the hips turn, and then come in. So my hands are on my hips now, and I'm going to give a sense of turning my pelvis, coming back in. A few more times. If you're really keeping this front leg stable, you will start to feel this outer right hip firm. Maybe warm, and maybe tone. Once more. Turn your hips, not just your ribs, not just the shoulders, but start with the hips, turning, turning, turning. Keep this hip in as you come back to the center. Great. Step your back leg forward, second side. So you'll step your right leg back, coming into a bent knee lunge. Squeeze your feet together and try to move your back thigh forward. Hands on your hips. You're going to direct your outer right hip forward, turning your pelvis towards your front bent knee. Keep this front knee facing the same direction as your toes the entire time. Come back in, firing that outer left bun. Squeeze and turn. Come back in. A few more times. I'm attempting to mirror you guys right now. Why not? You guys, you gals, you goyles. Turn, turn, turn. Feel that outer cheek, the outer left cheek firm. Three more. Yes. Last time. Ooh. There we are. Step your back foot forward. Standing at the top of your mat, inhale, sweep your arms over your head. Hinge at your hips. Exhale, fold forward over your legs. Pull your chest out forward. Inhale, lift halfway, and step your left leg back. Come up to a high lunge. Keep your back leg straight. So if you need to be much more upright or lifted with your hips, awesome. Navel tones back. Lift your arms up. Bend your elbows and bring your hands to the nape of your neck. Drag the nape of your neck up off of your back and lean back as you lift your chest towards the ceiling. Firm your left glute. Did I mention breathing yet? One more breath. And release your hands down, framing your right foot. Step back, downward facing dog. Pull forward, inhale, plank pose. Exhale, lower all the way down. Untuck your toes. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, release. Downward facing dog. You can move through child's pose, or you can always push up to plank position and then transition to down dog if you wish. Inhale, lift your left leg. Exhale, step your left foot forward between your thumbs. Come up to your high lunge, right, like you're on a high wire. Notice if that left hip, that front leg hip, is shifting over to the left. Can you stabilize that hip? Turn those outer hip muscles on, squeeze that hip in, and lift your arms up. Bend your elbows, hands behind your head. Drag the back of your neck up, and then lean your ears back, maybe looking up to the ceiling as you also lift your sternum upwards. One more breath. Release your hands down and step your back foot forward. Bring your feet all the way together to touch. Bring your right hand to your sacrum, left hand to the back of your head. Push the floor away and stand up. Bend your knees, inhale. Exhale, stand. Again. Push the floor away, get tall. 3 more. Weight in your heels the whole time. Back of your head pressing back. Keep your chin towards your throat. Last time. Stand up. Inhale, sweep your arms overhead. Exhale, hinge at your hips and fold forward. Inhale, lengthen halfway. Hands down to the ground and step back, downward facing dog. Inhale, shift forward, plank pose. Exhale, lower all the way down to the ground. Untuck your toes. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. 1 breath here. Bend your knees, look forward, hop or step, feet to your hands. Inhale, pull your chest out halfway. Hinge at your hips, exhale, fold. Stand and rise, inhaling up. Exhale, release your arms. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. Hinge at your hips and fold forward over your legs. Inhale, pull your chest out forward. Step your right leg back. Right leg steps back. Come up to your high lunge. Keep that outer left hip hugging in. This time you're going to bring your hands together to touch in front of you and shift your torso forward. Keep your back leg firm so your legs and your hips are going to stay fixed this time as you turn just your rib cage, aiming your right elbow towards your left thigh. Maybe they hook, maybe they don't. Abdominal wall is getting compressed, so of course you breathe through your lungs. 1 more breath. Release your hands down, framing your left leg, step back, down dog. You're welcome to pause here in down dog if ever you'd like, or shift forward to plank pose. Exhale, bend your elbows halfway or all the way. Cobra, or maybe you're ready for upward facing dog. Thighs and knees lift as you straighten your arms. Exhale, downward facing dog. Lift your right leg up to the ceiling. Exhale, swing and place your right foot forward between your thumbs. Come up to your high lunge. Keep your outer standing hip, your outer right hip, hugging into the midline. Connect your palms in front of your chest. Shift your torso forward halfway. Feel how the navel lifts up. Turn and twist, left elbow towards right thigh. Maybe they hook, maybe they don't. It's all good. Regardless, breathe. Regardless of hooking or not hooking. Release your hands down and step your back foot forward. Bring your feet together, bend your knees, chair pose. And then stand all the way up, exhale. Release your arms. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, hinge at your hips and fold forward. Inhale, pull your chest out halfway. Pause here, bring blocks underneath your hands if you got them. You can always put your hands on your coffee table if you want. Shift your weight into your right leg. Lift your left leg up. Pull your chest forward, breathe in. As you exhale, just bend your lifted leg. Bend your left leg. Heel towards hip. Straighten your left leg. Do that again. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. Remember when you were laying on your stomach at the beginning and just kind of flapping your tail in the wind. That's what you're doing here, but just on the left side. Now, as you bend your left knee, pause. Tendency will be for that left thigh to sink down. Can you firm your left leg, lifting it away from the floor while maintaining a sense of lift through the navel, through the sides of your waist even? And then lower down just about a half an inch. Keep flexing your left foot. Drive your left heel towards the ceiling. I told you we'd also get into the buns today, right? Lower the left thigh down just a couple inches, and then lift your left heel. Ooh, yeah, let's do this twice more. Inhale, exhale, inhale, and exhale. Firm your left leg, straightening the left leg, moving the left heel out of your hip. Now you're going to bend your standing leg, your right leg. As you do so, your outer right hip will want to swing out to the right. Keep firming your outer right hip in. Stabilize those outer hip muscles. Reach your left leg back and land your left foot down to the floor. Come into your high lunge. Inhale, arms rise. Oh, yeah. Now this time, you're going to interlace your fingers kind of like you're an opera singer, part of the Von Trapp family. And you're going to start to widen your elbows. And as you pull your elbows away from one another, you'll feel your outer shoulders firm and engage. Pull your chest forward. You're welcome to stay here. Or as you maintain the firmness of your outer right hip, you might start to swing your left elbow towards your right thigh. Again, they might hook, they might not. One more breath. And release your hands down, framing your right leg. Step your right leg back. Pause in down dog if you'd like. Or shift forward, plank pose. Exhale, bend halfway or all the way. Inhale, cobra or up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Left leg lifts. Exhale, step your left foot forward between your thumbs. Come all the way up, high lunge. Release your hands down to the mat. Step forward and fold. Chair pose, bend your knees, inhale. Stand all the way up, firm your legs, release your arms to your sides. Again, chair pose, inhale. Exhale, hinge and fold, hands on your blocks. Pull your chest forward. Right leg lifts, up and back. Give your lifted leg a bend, heel towards hip. Straighten your right leg. Bend your right leg. Straighten your right leg. Do that a couple more times. You can already start to reinforce. Navel, belly is lifting as you pull your chest forward and hug your outer left hip into the midline. Bend your right knee, heel towards hip, flex your right foot. Lift your right heel up a couple inches. Ooh, I'm shaking. And then lower down. Lift up and lower down. Notice the reaction. Notice the story. Keep pulsing up and down. Notice that maybe subconscious pattern that arises. We get caught in that samskara, that cycle. Whew. That cycle we don't even think about entering. We just enter it, right? It's so part of us. It's so deep ingrained. When we become aware of the cycle, when we bring consciousness to it, then we have that option to choose something different. You can do here. You can do here. You can be here. You can do this twice more. Yes, you can. Straighten your right leg. Bend your left leg. Continue hugging your outer left hip in towards your midline. Step your right leg back. Come all the way up. Et voila. Opera singer. Hook your fingers, elbows wide. Shift your chest forward. Chest forward. Shift right elbow towards left thigh. Maybe they hook, maybe they don't. Keep your back leg firm. Right toes pressing onto the ground. One more breath. Hands down, step your left leg back. Pause in down dog if you want. Shift forward to plank pose if you want to move. Bend your elbows. Inhale, your back bend. Exhale, down dog. Right leg lifts. Exhale, step your right foot forward. Come all the way up. High lunge, exhale, release your hands, step forward and fold. Bend your knees, reach down, find one of your blocks, hold on to it between your palms on its widest facet, lift your arms up. Bend your elbows, bring the block behind your head, and you can do this with a book, I don't know, a box of cereal. Rock your weight back into your heels. I keep on using that metaphor, and I keep on laughing like it's funny. It's not very funny. Narrow your elbows towards your temples. Keep your elbows there. Straighten your arms. Bend your elbows. Bring the block behind your head, and as you lift your chest, your head leans back into the block. All right, bend your knees more. Straighten your arms. Bend your elbows. Elbows stay narrow the whole time. Keep reaffirming, chest is lifting, head pressing back. Straighten your arms. Bend your elbows. So each time the block comes back, it's just reaffirming, oh, did I move? Did I stray away from that position? Straighten. Bend. Slightly. Right? And it's just that slight readjustment, that slight reconnection. Once more. Sit down. Sit down, Sarah. And then stand up. Release your arms. Well, hello. Stand on your right leg. Bend your left knee. Reach back. Hold on to your left ankle. Hold on to your ankle. Lift your navel. This passive thigh stretch. Let your left thigh, left quad get stretched out. Release your left leg. Second side. As your right leg is receiving this nice little stretch, continue to encourage your waistline back. Your gaze is consistent. One more breath. And then release. Inhale, sweep your arms up over your head. Hinge at your hips and fold forward over your legs. Inhale, lengthen your chest out halfway. Step just your left leg back and bring one block outside of your right foot. Bring your left hand to your left hip. You're going to readjust your back foot and bring your left heel to the floor. Now remember when we were doing that twisting exercise, can you move that outer left hip forward a good amount? Try to scissor your hips. And as you do that, you'll feel your outer right hip kind of pull back. You're kind of scissoring your hips. Keep that action of moving your right hip crease back a bit. But now stomp down through your right heel so that you feel your outer right hip muscles firm and engage. You even feel your right bun engage. That is what's going to help to rotate your body to the left slightly, turning your rib cage, maybe turning your gaze towards the ceiling. You're welcome to stay here with your left hand on your hip or reach and extend your left arm over your head. Bend your left elbow, give yourself a little pat on the back, pause. Left elbow in towards your temple. Breathe. Right, there's a hollowing right here out of your left armpit. Can you keep that hollowing as you straighten your left arm? Keep firming your outer right hip. Parshva Konasana. One last breath here. Release your hands down. Step your back foot forward. Last side, right leg stepping back. Move your left hand and block outside of your left foot. Bring your right hand to your right hip. Place your right foot down onto the ground. Now, as you do so, do you notice, right, especially if I just swivel the heel to the ground, if I swivel the heel to the ground, my hips really shift towards the right. All right, my hips really turn. So I am going to now try to instead place my right foot on the floor. And breathe. And I'm going to move my outer right hip slightly forward. Because what that does is it accomplishes this outer left hip moving in towards my body. All right, this took me years to understand. So if you're just starting and this is not really making very much sense, it's okay. You're still receiving so many of the benefits. Just because we don't understand something completely doesn't mean it's not fully beneficial, right? It is beneficial. Hug the outer left hip into your body, squeeze your left glute, press your left heel down, and start to turn your torso. Pause here with your right hand on your hip or extend your right arm forward over your head. You might bend your right elbow, give yourself a little pat on the back. You're doing great. Right armpit slightly hollows. Stay here, or maybe maintain that hollowing of your armpit as you straighten your right arm firm. One more breath. Release your right hand, step your back forward and fold. Stand all the way up, inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, hinge at your hips, fold and release. Inhale, lengthen halfway. Hands to the mat, step or jump back, down dog. You're welcome to shift forward, plank pose. Exhale, lower halfway or all the way. Cobra or up dog. Exhale, downward facing. Two more breaths here. Release your knees down to the ground. Shift your hips just over to the right, sitting side saddle for a moment. You'll place your left ankle in the arch of your right foot. Your left hip is higher than your right, correct? You're sitting on your right hip. Your left waist is very high up. So what I'm going to do now, what I'm going to encourage you to do, is place something underneath just your right glute or right hip, so that your left hip actually remains a little suspended, and you can lower your left hip down, leveling the two sides of your pelvis. Bring your right hand to your left thigh. Bring your left hand to your sacrum, and allow your sacrum to rise up as you turn and maybe look over your left shoulder. Keep lifting your sternum. As your chin stays towards your throat, lean your ears back. Turn your gaze forward and unravel. All right. Lift your hips up, move the prop out from underneath your right hip. Shift your hips over to the left. Sit back. Bring your block underneath your left hip. Okay? Bring your right foot on top of your left arch. You're sitting on something just on your left glute, so that the right glute, your right hip is hanging. You know? Just hanging. Left hand to your right thigh, right hand to your sacrum, and lift your sacrum up and slightly forward into your body so that you can restore your natural lumbar curvature. Roll your gaze over your right shoulder. Welcoming breath into your rib cage. Turn your gaze forward and then unravel. All right, take your block out from underneath your left glute. Sit behind your feet. Plant your feet down in front of you. Bring your hands behind you, pivoting your fingers out, east and west, right and left. Roll your upper arm bones, not just your elbows. Give your elbows a slight bend. Roll your upper arms. Feel the backs of your armpits start to engage and tone. Press your feet down. Lift your sternum up. Lift your chest up. Keep lifting your chest. Keep lifting your heart so that you can look up towards the ceiling, right? Not from thrusting your head up, but from the heart rising, informing the mind, informing the gaze. Lift your hips. Lift your chest more. Lift your heart more. And maybe your head starts to tilt back. But keep lifting your heart. Chin to chest. Lower down. Okay. Place a block, or it could be a pretty thick pillow, between your thighs. I just want that gauge, again, between your legs so that your knees stay equidistant. They stay steady the whole time. You'll bring your hands down next to you. Lift your hips up. Now you're welcome to stay here. Squeeze your block. Some of you might move your upper arms underneath you. Right? You might interlace your fingers. Bridge pose. Lift your chest. Your chest. Lift it. Press the back of your head into the floor. And release your hands, lower all the way down. Pause. Don't bring your knees into your chest just yet. We're staying with some back bending. So I want to keep your body in that mood, in that category right now. You're welcome to stay here, right? If you're done, you're done, but just stay here. No need to bring your feet into your chest just yet. We can do that together in a moment. Or you can repeat bridge pose. Do what we just did a moment ago. Lift your hips up, interlace your fingers underneath your tail, widen your chest, lift your collarbones. You're welcome again to stay here, or if you're with me, you'll lift your hands up to the ceiling, bend your elbows. Your elbows narrow, so they stay parallel. Bend at your wrists, bring your hands to the floor, so your fingers are facing your shoulders. Again, elbows narrow. Now you're welcome to stay here, or as you exhale, come up onto the top of your head. You're welcome to pause here, making sure that you're pressing down through your big toes, your thumbs equally. You might push the floor away and lift your chest and head off of the mat. Oh, it feels great. Chin to chest, elbows bend, lower on the back of your head, shoulders back, lower down. Keep your feet on the ground, pause, breathe. Remove the block from in between your thighs. Shift your knees slowly side to side. Casually, easily. Draw your right knee into your chest. Pause for a moment as you wrap your fingers around your right shin. Press your right shin forward into your hands so that you again feel your right glute firm. It's an opportunity to replug your right femur bone into the acetabulum, into the socket of your hip. Soften your jaw. Straighten your left leg. That's the leg you're not holding onto. And then keep crossing your right leg over your body. Spinal twist. No worries about it, the knee touching the ground or your right shoulder touching the ground. Just let your body revolve. Come back to the center. Bend your left knee. Cross your right ankle over your left thigh. Pause here, pressing the back of your tail and sacrum into the mat. Press your right shin forward without using your hands. Look, Ma, no hands. I'm using my muscles to stretch my muscles. It's safer for the knee in the long run. You're welcome to stay here or hug your left thigh into your chest, threading the needle. You can stay here, or some of you want to get frisky and straighten your left leg as well. Rebend your left leg and release. Release your right foot next to your left and pause before going to the second side. Hug your left knee into your chest, wrapping your hands around your shin, and then press your shin forward into the sling of your arms. So you can feel that left femur head plug into the socket, and notice if the front of your left hip grips a bit. Can you soften that? Let the bowl and the lining of your pelvis soften as well. As you soften that, you'll feel your abdominal wall tone down or recede towards your spine. Straighten your right leg and then twist. Take the leg across your body, left arm reaches. Come back to the center, cross your left ankle over your right thigh as you bend your right knee. Pause here. And press your left shin forward away from you as the two sides of your pelvis remain equally heavy on the ground. Hug your right thigh into your chest. Possibly, maybe. Range. You can always do that. You don't have to go anymore. But presenting the option, some of you might straighten your right leg. And release. Hug both knees into your chest. Give yourself a squeeze. Thank you, body. Thank you. Thank you. Release your arms. Release your legs. Shift any props out from touching you. However, if you do find it difficult for your mind to settle when your body is still, you can place a prop, a pillow on your abdomen. And observe your breath moving the block. Continue softening, melting. You're welcome to stay here longer. Return to your breath. Let it move through you, creating movement in your fingers and your toes. Rebending your knees one at a time. Rolling to one side. And using your arms to return back to a seated shape. Closing your eyes still one more time. Placing your hands on top of your chest, just beneath your sternum. Breathe underneath your hands so that there's a filling of your heart space. Allow your head to nod down towards your heart rising. And feel the gentle weight of your hands and your breath resisting that weight, moving within. You'll release your hands and feel the lightness, the removal of that weight creates ease. May that easiness remain with you as you start to lift your head and lift your eyelids. Namaste. Have a beautiful rest of your day, my dear. Bye.